Okie dokie. Hello. Karen Hoskin, the Chair of the Housing Advisory Board. Welcome to our monthly meeting. Today is April 22nd. Yes, 2026. So we'll start with a roll call. We have some new board members here. We have a couple of guests as well. So Brendan Selby. Did I say that correctly?
You did.
Awesome. Okay. Chip Hennessy.
Here.
David Garabed. Garabed.
Here.
I'll get that. Okay. Lauren Shevitz. Here. Philip Ogren.
Here.
Sheriff Feinberg. Here. And then we have a new planning board liaison, Max Lord is joining us.
I guess I'm also here.
What?
I said, I guess I'm also here.
And then we have Laura Scheinbaum as a guest. And then is Jeremy?
Yeah, I think I just saw him forwarding.
He's coming in. Okay. And then virtually, I believe Lisa How is that correct? Is that how you say it? Hood, thank you, is joining us tonight. So on the agenda tonight, take a quick moment to introduce ourselves. And then we will approve the minutes, from last month. We'll have time for public participation. The matters from the board, we have Public Housing Partners overview and ADU update, the Boulder Valley Comp Plan recommendation to Council and Planning Board letter, and a review of the HAB work plan. And then we'll cover any matters from the staff, go over any final thoughts or suggestions, and adjourn. So we're going to have a retreat in May. And so we'll have more time to get to know each other. But again, Lauren, Karen, Philip, Chip, paying attention, Shara, Brendan, David, and then Max. Do we have time for a little bit more?
Yeah, just a couple sentences.
Maybe just, I don't know. Share why you decided to join.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Interested in affordable housing and housing availability as like a human right. I think it's important to figure out how to provide that for folks.
Yeah, I worked in public service for 8 years and was looking for a way to kind of get involved in the local community, and housing is an issue that I care about, and got interested in when I lived in San Francisco, where I moved from, and excited to work with everybody and learn more about Boulder.
I've lived in Boulder for about 30 years. I'm in the construction business, and we build a lot of affordable housing, thousands of units. So I'd like to be able to lend my experience and helping to make affordable housing easier to build in Boulder, and also learn about policy and how it gets to be.
If you want to say something about who you are, just so we can know.
Sure. My name's Stephen Hennessy, although I go by Chip, and you can call me Chip. My day job, I'm an attorney. I've been on the board for 2 years now. And I guess I originally got involved with this board because, I was doing eviction work in Boulder, and I got to see how our housing situation sort of plays out for some of the poorest people in our community. And I think we have an affordability crisis in Boulder, and we need to take stronger action to ensure there's affordable housing so people can live here.
My name is Philip, and I got involved with local politics in a couple of different campaigns, and I just stayed politically active, and I've done a lot of interviewing, podcasting type work, and I'm just really passionate about housing issues. So.
Karen, I'm a big believer in community-oriented housing, so you'll hear some of my opinions are flavored by that. yeah, I don't know what else to say. Housing related things. Interesting.
My name is Lauren Shevitz and I've been on the board about a year and I'm an affordable housing developer.
Like I said, we'll get to know each other more at the upcoming retreat. Okay, approval of the minutes. Did everybody have a chance to see the minutes from last month that Tiffany posted? Are there any comments or corrections that need to be made? I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Somebody want to second it?
Second.
All in favor? None opposed, motion approved. Public participation. Maybe we have anybody?
There's one member of the public online. But raise their hand, the other people.
Give it a moment for them to click the raise hand. All right, we'll move on then. Okay, so matters from the board. We have Jeremy Durham and Laura Scheinbaum with Boulder Housing Partners, and they're gonna give us an overview about all the things you'll do. Welcome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great.
Thanks for having us. My name is Jeremy Durham, Executive Director at Boulder Housing Partners.
Hi, I'm Laura Scheinbaum. I am the Chief Real Estate Officer for Boulder Housing Partners. So I oversee our development activities, including sort of origination, new construction, and then sort of our big rehab projects that would invest in our existing portfolio.
So we have a presentation.
Working on it.
Cool. All right. Is it possible for me to drive presentation?
Sure is.
Us to drive it?
Anything else on my computer?
The next hour off. Won't tell Kurt.
See if I can make it full screen.
That is affordable housing right there.
There you go. Yeah, we did a tour with the Housing Advisory Board, but I think obviously there's been a lot of turnover. So we toured this site in 2 years ago. Yeah. So
It wasn't completed.
yeah. Yeah, so we have a presentation that covers a number of topics, but we also know we only have an hour with you. And so we wanted to make it as open-ended as possible and give you all just a chance to ask questions about things that you're curious about, because you all have obviously volunteered for this board for a reason. So we were just thinking that maybe we'd walk you through, 4 or 5 slides recapping what we've been up to over the last year. And then just sort of turn it over for questions and we can dive into whatever is of interest to you. I think we probably have slides for most of the things that you might want to talk about. Maybe I'll be wrong about that, but yeah, so with that said, for those of you that aren't familiar with us and our work, this is our mission, vision, and strategic priorities as an organization. So we're a governmental organization, we're not for profit. So we're not one of those greedy developers that you read about in the Daily Camera or on Nextdoor. We really are here just to serve the community and to add community benefit throughout the organization through rent savings. So we're always striving to introduce as much affordability into the community as possible, whether that's reducing rents where we already have existing units or whether that's bringing new units online, which is what Laura really does for us. And you'll see in a minute just how much she has been doing in that regard. I'll let you take this one because it's kind of a recap of our last year, biggest year in BHP's history.
Yeah, so a big part of what we do, not the only part, but we are, a developer where we manage all of our own operations as well and do resident services. But the piece that we'll talk about for this slide is just sort of the growth that we've experienced over the course of the past few years. So in a couple different ways. One is we acquired the Golden West property, which is a senior affordable building that's over by the CU campus, 28th in Colorado. We took that over about 280-ish units, and then a vacant building that we renovated. So that was a big boost to kind of unit count for us. And then we had 3 projects under development over the course of the past year that all came online in 2025. The first was senior housing in South Boulder, Hilltop. The next was Raleigh Flats, which is where the old Raleigh sports health center was. If anyone remembers that, it's sort of an iconic health facility here, in Boulder. 100 units there, and that's not age restricted or nothing. That's just 1 and 2 bedroom units. And then we also have Hawthorne Court, which was the image that you just saw. David's team actually helped us with that, and that is located over at 28th and Iris, kind of back behind the 24-hour fitness and across the street from Safeway stuff. So there's been quite a bit of new affordable housing that's come on the market, and it's leasing really, really well. We have very low affordability, and it's serving a variety of different folks who are wanting to live affordably in our communities, with seniors, workforce housing with Raleigh, a little bit more family-oriented housing over at Hawthorne Court. The other piece I'll mention at the end of the slide is the North Tower. So when we were acquired Golden West, there was a vacant building that had been affordable assisted living that had been closed down during COVID. And we acquired all of Golden West. We went in and renovated that assisted living facility into independent living units that are still very deeply affordable. I went through a process to really revitalize that vacant building and bring those units to life. So we're in the process of leasing those right now. So,
Ask a quick question. I saw North Tower. I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. I typed in 1055 Adams Circle, and I just wondered if that was a typo, or if the Golden West and North Tower have the same address.
The North Tower is the North Tower of Golden West. So when we acquired Golden West, there was good research on the fly here. When we acquired Golden West, there was a North Tower that was vacant, and it was part of our arrangement with the nonprofit organization that was closing Golden West Inc. They wanted us to take over the property, and they also wanted us to fulfill their vision of bringing that North Tower back online. And so Laura and her team jumped into action right away. And even though we didn't acquire the property until January 1st of this year or last year, we were able to have the North Tower completed before the end of the year, in addition to taking over and stabilizing the operation of the property. So when you add it all up, ended up taking over 517 affordable homes last year between our acquisitions and our new developments, which brings us to exactly 2,100 homes actually, which it always bothers me when it rounds out because it makes it seem like we're just making shit up. We're not making stuff up. This is the actual number. But I think more significantly, it represents a 33% growth for the organization in a single year. And, for us, as we just look to kind of like stabilize our operation going forward, when we look at our housing options, we know that 25% of what we currently have came online just last year, just based on the way the math works out. So this little graph here is meant to just kind of display the growth that we had throughout the year, starting at around 1,600 units and then ending all the way at 2,100, which is a little bit covered up by the Zoom image there. Additionally, this year, we also brought 3 solar gardens online, which you can also see on the time frame, on the timeline. We also have some slides on that as well. Yeah.
And just quick, when I saw 2,100 units, my brain kind of fritzed because I expected it to be a number twice that size. And then I remembered that this is the BHP properties, not the total affordable.
That's right.
Can someone just remind me what the total number of affordable units in Boulder is?
Just saw it, 4,300.
43, over
That
40.
was on here earlier. Okay, sorry.
No,
Oh.
when I was doing orientation for the new
Oh,
program.
I see. Okay.
So I
Should have tested
believe
one of our new members.
2 years ago, your strategic plan goal was 2,000 units. Is that correct?
Oh, I think what you're talking about was yes, and now we've met it. So
Yeah, so
we feel good.
what are your?
Yeah, what's our goals
Maybe
going
I'm
forward?
jumping
Yeah.
ahead, but.
Yeah, I think so. Our goals are to be, I think, responsive to the needs of the community.
Okay.
We've tried to move away from any like set units per year goal and instead just basically line up a system where we are as resourced and as flexible as possible. So for example, one thing that you may have read about in the paper, or just be aware of because you're all, in the housing industry or at least adjacent to it from being on this board, is that actually, like, we're in a time period right now where like rents are more affordable than they've ever been, which is great. It also means, as a landlord, and BHP has two hats here, right? Because we fund our operation by being a landlord, right? But we also are a mission-driven organization that's trying to get rents as low as possible, both in our units and in the community. So it's kind of a unique situation where it wouldn't make sense at all for us to have another year in the next couple of years like the one we just had, where we're pushing 500 new units into the Boulder market. That would be really financially risky for us. And so instead, what we're doing now is we're focusing on, okay, what does the community need now? It needs fewer units, but deeper affordability. And so we're trying to push the offerings that we're bringing online over the next couple of years into like the lowest levels of affordability for the people with the highest level of need. And so what we try to do is set BHP up not to be like, okay, every year we're going to do 100 units, 200 units, but to instead have at any given time, a number of options that we can pull from so that we have a pipeline that is robust. And when the market and the community is needing a lot of workforce housing units in bulk, then we have properties that we can pull off the shelf, put into the development pipeline, and start to develop 100 and 150 units of 50 and 60% AMI housing. But when we're in a place like now where the market is really requiring 50 to 75 units of 30% AMI housing, that's where we're focused. And so we try to just bring, I think, a little bit more flexibility to that.
For you, what is that middle bottom in development?
Yeah, you want to talk about all of those at the bottom there?
Yeah, so 34th Street is a project that is located 34th and Valmont, basically. So if you were to head back north off of Valmont at 34th Street, San Juan del Centro is there. There's a vacant parcel of about 5 acres that we purchased in partnership with the city a number of years ago, about 10 years ago, actually land banked it, and are now, we have a tax-free award and we'll move forward with our financial closing this year and hopefully start construction in the fall. So that's 44 units. It's kind of townhome style housing for families and a big open green area. It's kind of the last opportunity really within our land banked parcels for us to do that style of kind of less dense housing. It doesn't pencil very well. It's quite expensive to build non-dense sort of stacked units. But this is a product type that we know there's a lot of demand for and a lot of appetite sort of politically in the community as well. So we're super happy to be bringing this one forward. Lots of green space, lots of just really, really elegant design there. So excited about that one. That'll be next up in terms of getting under construction. And then we have 2 other ones. And as Jeremy mentioned, we try to have sort of at any given time, fully entitled, meaning like site review complete, having site review approval to be able to sort of pull something forward, depending on where the market is. And so Alpine Balsam and Penrose, these are 2 kind of very different opportunities for new affordable units. And for a while, we were moving forward on Penrose, which is 113 units off of 30th and sort of the diagonal. And now we are sort of pivoting and leaning into Alpine Balsam, given our partnership with the city and the need for what we're seeing really deeply affordable senior housing. And we think that right now that's going to be a little bit better serving our community than Penrose. And so we'll keep Penrose on a little bit of a back burner, so to speak, and really lean into the Alpine Balsam site. Alpine Balsam, as you know, is right behind us. I'm sure you've seen a lot of the work happening over there. That's driven by the city team right now, the city facilities team. They've built a big floodway to help with flood mitigation from North Boulder Park. And then there's the city municipal building, the Civic Center, which will house the city council chambers and a bunch of office spaces for city workers, city employees. And then there's 4 residential parcels out there as well, 2 of which will be affordable. We will be developing those. That's 144 units, 155 age restricted for seniors, and the other 89 units for age restricted housing, kind of right in the middle. And then there's 2 market rate parcels that the city will eventually sell and have another developer come in and build those. And then Penrose, like I mentioned, it's over off of Harrison, the fourth.
That's the office rehab that Pete at Colburn came to talk to us about previously.
It's hard to recognize that from this photo.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
It doesn't look like that photo, does it? Or does it?
For Penrose,
Yeah.
Pete Weber came and talked to you about that?
Probably some year ago.
Building on the right should
Yeah,
be.
it's like-
the-
Yeah, I know, but
Left.
it just looks different than what I remembered seeing in that presentation.
Interesting. So yeah, there is adaptive reuse at 3,300 Penrose. That is quite expensive, and we hope to keep when we advance the project down the road.
Other things we've done this year, so, you know, being a mission-driven organization, like we said, no shareholders. We exist for the community, and so we're always trying to kind of reinvest everything that we can into the community. So one thing that we did this year is also in part of taking over Golden West. Our goals were to get the North Tower back online, as well as to reopen the restaurant that was in that building for many, many years. And so that's something that we were able to do this year in partnership with Imagine. And so right now that restaurant is up and running. Let us know if anybody wants to stop by and check out the affordable housing community and get a meal. We can set that up for you. But right now they're serving about 60 affordable meals every day. And you know, there's special events and things like that. We're able to serve over 200 people over Thanksgiving, which is pretty cool. I was able to go by with my family as well. And so that was really nice. Mentioned our solar gardens. We're trying to obviously just do our part for sustainability in the community. You know, we were able to sign contracts for 3 solar gardens last year, which is about 25% of our housing stock, even at our new size. And so when you break it down between our current rooftop solar, our current solar gardens, and our future solar gardens, we're hoping to be at 75% of our power from solar by the end of this year. We're going to continue just to march forward as we add more units. We're going to keep trying to find more solar gardens to subscribe and invest to, so we can keep that going until we're at 100%. This is just some stats if you're interested in sort of BHP's operations financially. Something that we are big proponents of is investing in community assets. And so we view all of our assets as like community assets. And so you see that number there, like 680 million. We didn't spend $680 million because we were able to work to leverage outside federal and state resources. And so now there's $680 million of real estate that is owned by BHP for the benefit of this community. Provide benefit to Boulder residents forever. So you can start to think about it almost as like a universal basic income program, in the sense that our typical resident, depending on the market, like in a typical market, is going to be saving at least $1,000 a month relative to a market rate rent. And for that $1,000 a month on an annual basis, this community pays nothing, absolutely nothing. In fact, actually, we make money. And when we make that money, we take it and we do stuff like this. So it really is a really great system to leverage outside resources, invest in capital assets for the benefit of the community.
Are all of your assets like fully insured?
Yes. That's
Yeah.
that's heavily required by everybody we work with, as well as our own just governance practices. So yeah, this is just some of us in the news last year. Go ahead.
Just one quick thing too, and you all probably know this because you are more aware of the affordable housing and things, but on that side, we do get resources from the city and gap financing when we build something, but it's important to know that we don't get ongoing operating subsidy from the city or generally or at all from the federal government. So this is money that comes in to help finance everything at the outset, and then we operate really in the same way that a market rate operator would operate their properties. We just get less rent, and so our needs are then at the front end, and we have to sort of power load equity into our deals at the front side because we don't get any ongoing operating subsidy to sort of make up the difference in those rents, if that makes sense.
This is just us in the news last year. Obviously, there was a lot going on for us. So we were busy and kind of out there last year. We're going to be a lot quieter over the next couple of years as we kind of reload and move through the next phase of our pipeline. But so we have a whole bunch more information, but I think this is where we wanted to pause and just see what you all want to talk about, what's on your mind, and hopefully we can go through any questions you have.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
So it's a huge addition to your inventory this year.
Yeah.
Or last year. So I'm curious, what kind of category percentage of AMI is the easiest to lease to, and where are you kind of struggling to fill those places? And
Yeah, so certainly the easiest is when you can have a federal voucher attached to it, where the resident is actually just going to pay a portion of their income towards the rent.
okay.
And that's going to be about a third. That's the easiest. Those fly off the shelf. There's never any availability. Now, when we don't have that resource available, and you just start to look at 60% AMI units, 50%, 40%, 30%, it's really simple. The more affordable, the faster it's going to fly off the shelf. Now, that said, there is actually sometimes still challenges, even at 30% AMI, and the reasons are not always immediately intuitive until you stop and kind of think about like what's actually happening at the individual family level. And so one thing that is happening, I think, especially right now when the economy is kind of rough, is that people who are making 30% of the area median income are people who are making about $30,000 a year, right? So somebody who's making 60% of their area median income is making about $60,000 a year. The federal standard, the state standard, the city standard, everybody's standard is you can pay a third of your income towards rent. If you really think about that, the standard actually doesn't make a lot of sense. And I'm going to tell you why it doesn't make sense. So if you take somebody who's at 60% AMI, say, okay, you're going to pay $20,000 a year towards your rent, you still have $40,000 to live on. That's good. I mean, you can probably make that work for a family, right? If you go down to a 30% AMI person, and you try to ask, okay, what can they really afford for rent? So the federal government's going to say they can afford $10,000 a year in rent. There's only $20,000 left for everything. That's your education, that's your transportation, that's your healthcare, that's your taxes, right? And the taxes is coming off the $30,000. What are you going to say?
You gotta eat.
You got to eat your food. Like, I mean, it's absolutely everything. It's your gas money. And so, in an economy like this, even 30% AMI units can become a challenge to rent because people's options start to become, well, do I want this 30% AMI unit that the government says is very affordable for me? Or do I want to go like double up with somebody or move back home, live in my parents' basement or whatever that looks like? And so I think it's just something, for folks that are in the housing policy space, which you all are, virtually being on this board, that I think should be front of mind is that the sort of a third of your income affordability metric, there's a range that it makes sense. I think it's a pretty narrow range. It also gets really absurd on the higher income end of the range, like somebody who's, an actual like billionaire, they can afford to spend 99.9% of their income on rent and be completely fine and still have more expendable income than everybody else in this room combined. And so you can kind of see that at the ends of the income spectrum, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But so for us, we're focused nonetheless on those 30s and 40s because that is where there's the most need. The 50s and 60s are where the market is much slower because it's just closer to market rents. And that is driven by, frankly, bureaucracy. If you are somebody who is choosing between an option where you can just show up, give the landlord a couple pay stubs, and move in a couple days, or another option where you're going to have to go through weeks of compliance, income certification processes. You're going to have to do it every year. This option is looking a lot better where you don't have to do all that stuff. It's just a lot more flexible and a lot easier for people. And so that is something that I think as an industry, we also need to really, really pay attention to is how hard we've made it for people to verify their income because we're so worried about somebody getting this benefit that maybe doesn't deserve it, Yeah.
What dollars or what funding requires that yearly verification?
Oh, that's a really good question. So Yeah, it's all, I mean, it's all of it. It's all of it. So we get federal, state and city money. The city has been a great partner, I think, in particular over the last 4 to 5 years at sort of continually relaxing some of the requirements around this, taking it, I think, as far as they can to make things more flexible and easier. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of all of it.
Can you explain how rent is actually calculated? Like, I talked with a resident of a BHP property who once told me that he started making a certain amount more than some threshold, and then there was a stepwise function, and his rent went way up. And I didn't know how to verify that, or but I'm kind of just curious. Is like is the unit sort of set at an AMI, and then the rent is set, and then someone comes and gets matched to it, or does the person come along and you match the rent to that person, or?
It's both. So when I mentioned before, like the federal voucher program, that is a program that sometimes is attached to a unit. And so somebody will show up and be like, I'm applying for affordable housing. And for that person, as their income goes up and down, their rent is going to go up and down. And it can feel like a lot to people. I mean, like if you go from making $30,000 a year to $40,000 a year, like your rent is going to go up by like $700 a month. That's substantial, right? So, and that's just the formula. So, but most of our product is actually not touched by the federal voucher program. And for those units, it's just set by what is deemed affordable for somebody earning 60%, 50%, 40%, and 30% of the area median income. And so if you come and qualify for a 60% AMI unit, you could be somebody that earns, say, 50% AMI, and you're qualified for that unit because you're below 60% of AMI, and then you're just getting the 60% AMI rent. The fact that you're a 50% AMI doesn't really help you. The rent is the rent. It doesn't go up and down based on your individual income.
That example you gave was kind of
Scary.
mind bending. You know, you said 30,000 to 40,000, your rent might go up $700.
I mean, I'll leave it real quick. It'd be about 500. Yeah.
Like, so like you'd have $6,000 more in rent, so you got a $4,000 raise basically.
Yeah.
It's tough. And more taxes.
So is 60% AMI about where affordable housing starts to compete with the market?
So it used to be like 80% AMI, 75% AMI. Right now, 52% AMI is the market.
52.
Yeah. Which is really stunning. And this is a development that is like months in the making, not years in the making, but months. It's like this was not the case 1 year ago. And it's also, I mean, something we should all just know is that it's also not going to be the case in 2 years. This is a temporary phenomenon.
Why?
Because what's driving it is, I mean, it's a number of factors. Some of it is the economy, but a lot of it is actually just that Denver permitted a extremely high number of apartment buildings in 2024 and 2025. And the like absorption rate, the number of people moving to Denver sort of stayed stagnant. And so as a result, there's like 80,000 new apartments or 40,000 new apartments in Denver just in that time period. But Denver is still only bringing in like 8,000 to 12,000 people a year. And so now there's this need to like absorb all of these units. So we tend to think of Boulder as like this bubble. Boulder's not a bubble, like not economically. It's not a bubble economically at all. We are very influenced in the rental market by what's happening in the Denver metro area. And so you have landlords in Denver with brand new units that are saying, we've got to rent these up. We have commitments to our lenders, we have commitments to our investors. So we're giving 3 months free rent. That's kind of the norm right now in Denver is 3 months free rent for an apartment. And so, and again, like I think that like as BHP, like we have to just be cognizant of the fact that we're on both sides of this. Like we're advocates for more affordable housing while also being an organization that like funds our whole operation with rents. There's no, like Laura said, there's no city subsidy, there's no federal money that funds us. So we're kind of torn here, but it's you know, the questions about whether or not you can reduce cost through supply, I think that Denver has answered that. The answer is yes, you can. Now, why is it going to go back up? Because Denver has swung the other way very, very hard. They've swung the other way.
Just in 2 years.
Just in 2 years. So now they're pulling like almost no permits. Even the ones that are like moving through the process, there's a lot of reason to believe they're not going to get built because a lot of new, very challenging regulations that Denver's put in place, the developers are saying no thanks to. And so I think that, that combined with the fact that investors are looking at that market and saying, well, if you've got to give 3 months free rent and vacancies at 12%, 10%, no, thank you. You're just not going to see that much building in the next 2-3 years.
I saw today that Q1 2026 was the first quarter that rents did not decrease
Yeah.
in Denver, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's already starting to turn around.
Stabilizing, yeah.
So I look back, I spent about 3 years defending tenants in eviction court. And BHP evicts tenants in Boulder County Court than any other landlord, which is understandable because BHP leases to more low-income people probably than any other landlord. But one thing I observed in my work is that BHP probably is like the best value for lower income people because for a good price, they get often a very nice, relatively large unit, if they need 3 bedrooms. But it's not the cheapest housing in Boulder.
Yeah.
There's cheaper housing on the free market often than what BHP offers because, again, a lot of these BHP properties are really nice and new, and some of the cheapest housing is not very nice and new. And I'm just wondering, in terms of it seems like a lot of these BHP properties are these new build developments that are, they look kind of like luxury apartments. Does BHP consider in its growth plans acquiring older properties that could be a lot cheaper for tenants? And what are the plans in that regard? These are beautiful, and I know that people get a great deal on them. But I'm just wondering if BHP's focus is low income housing. What kind of older, cheaper units are out there?
It's such
Well
a,
said.
so great. What a great question. And yes, unit acquisition has been part of our growth pattern over the past 10 years. We've not done as much of that in the past 5, mostly because even though it might be considered less expensive housing, when somebody was to sell it, they still want a cap rate and the land is really valuable. So you're still paying top dollar for a probably pretty crappy apartment complex that needs a ton of capital investment because that's typically when somebody wants to go and sell something. So the asset is tired. We come in, we buy it relatively cheaply, but then have a big capital need to be able to put into it. And we're also paying, we're competing with other private developers in the market to be able to afford to purchase it. So it is challenging to be able to find the equity to be able to buy down to an affordable rent, even if it's historically been in the market at sort of a very, very low price point. So I think that's a little bit of a challenge in terms of acquiring older, as you said, sort of not great properties. We tend to like those in the community just because it's called naturally occurring affordable housing. We don't like a slumlord, of course, but it is something that serves a purpose in our community.
We have that some though.
Yeah.
We're describing actually,
Tantra. Yeah,
4 at least.
Yeah, we bought Tantra Apartments, which was a big purchase for us in 2017. We slowly brought that into the affordable world. It started off at 40% affordable. So you also have to attrition anybody who's living in the apartments to affordable. So you don't want to have to inadvertently displace somebody and have them forced to relocate in terms of, bringing in affordable covenants too quickly and then they don't qualify and then they get displaced. So there's a sort of an art and a dance to making sure that you're not unduly impacting folks that are already living in some of it. But Tantra is a big one. We also bought 31 units in Trout Farms. We bought a couple properties, Cedar and Casey, a couple properties right here along Broadway. So 2037 Walnut. So yeah. So we do it, and then we acquired Golden West as well. So again, I think it's definitely part of what we're always scanning for. We have brokers that we work with that send me stuff all the time.
We also just don't always advertise those properties as much. There's to your point. When we show up for a presentation, it's going to be what we built last year.
And I guess the flip side is these beautiful brand new properties 40 years from now won't be beautiful brand new properties. So that's just kind of the cycle of
But
building.
BHP is in the public eye, right? And so they're expected to maintain pristine properties,
Yeah.
right? So even if it's an older property, they still need to renovate, they still need to keep it in good condition.
Yeah,
To maintain it.
and when you build one, you're also building for a 15-year compliance period. And so you don't have the opportunity to bring additional resources into the project during that compliance period. So you're really building for a hold of 15 years. And so your product needs to be pretty bulletproof from day one. Otherwise, you're gonna end up, having the degradation that we saw within the public housing capital B, capital H program historically. So I think it's important to know that we're building to a certain standard because we know we have this compliance period and we don't have the opportunity for capital reinvestment within that period of time. Also, we love Boulder, and Boulder has very, very high building standards. The building codes here are amazing and great, and force us to build a very nice, expensive product.
Yeah, I think Lauren also has, a great point in that we are in the public eye, and the properties that we do have that are older and more tired, like they're the ones that we hear about from politicians and such, and it doesn't mean that they're not providing a great community benefit. And we're trying to invest as much as we can in those. I think you may have seen on the earlier slide, we invested like 3.25 million in our portfolio last year. And we continue to try to keep properties as nice as possible. But yeah, sometimes just being a public agency, there's just expectations around us not managing projects. Yeah.
A little bit more. You mentioned transitioning kind of from just building sheer number of units with the changing economic environment. Can you expand on like what the next couple of years looks like in terms of your strategy?
Yeah, I think just being a little more measured in our pacing in terms of new construction, even though it was great that we brought all that out, it wasn't necessarily intended. They were supposed to be spread out a little bit more than they were. But that's the nature of development. So, but I think, measured, and then also I think we have a really great slide that shows deep affordability. And so I think there's been a lot of focus over time about the number of units, but as Jeremy mentioned earlier, there's now, we're trying to really understand where the market is and where the people are that don't have choice are, who they are and what their incomes are, and providing choice to them at a very low income. And so what that requires then is deeper subsidies. That might mean that we have to go slower to be able to reach the lower AMI levels that are that are needed in our community. So instead of maybe building 500 units in 3 years, it might be more like 150 units, but we have really, really deep affordability because that's where the demand is and that's where the need is.
What are the biggest obstacles, like, political or democratic, that you would see to achieving that deep affordability goal?
It's money, right? So there's an assumption that like, well, why can't, there's gap financing and there's tax credits and there's different forms of equity that we bring in, but for every 10% of AMI that we dip below 60%, there's a cost and debt proceeds that we have to make up somewhere. And so if we go from 60% to 50%, it's typically $45,000 in debt proceeds that we have to bring in from another source, and it just keeps going down. So if you're going from a 60 to a 30, all of a sudden you're at basically another $150,000, and that's just one unit. And gap financing. So how do you make that up? How do you convince the people in your community that no, we're not going to do 10 units, we're going to do 1 unit, and it's going to be really deeply affordable? I mean, that's a little bit what we're doing today, is sort of orienting people to sort of that need in our community.
We've created like a short little tool to demonstrate this dynamic. If you want a 2-minute like tutorial, you might find this remedial, but you might not. So like this building is meant to illustrate like the cost to build a building, and there's like 3 segments here. The reason that there's 3 segments is when we build with just 3 things: debt, equity, gap. Gap is like what we locally are responsible for. Equity is what we get from an investor.
We
Debt,
globally,
yeah,
like I said,
debt is what we get from a lender. So we can send this out later, but this one slide here, I really believe actually captures like most of the essence of like affordable housing and the different toggles. But for now, we'll just go through the debt part of it. So when you go to finance affordable housing and you go to get your loan, it's not like the amount of loan you get, it's not arbitrary. Like it's based very, very specifically on your ability to repay the loan, your monthly loan payments. That's what the bank is looking at. And so that is going to be a function of really two things, your projected net operating income and your interest rate. Your net operating income is a function of your operating revenue and your operating expenses, right? And then your operating revenue is a function of your rent levels and your vacancy. So what that means is that you get more rent. You see that? That's going to go up. So if you're doing a 60% AMI project, you have more rent, you can get more debt, right? It's pretty simple. Rent levels go down though, you're doing a 30% AMI project, you're going to get significantly less debt.
The gap goes up.
The gap goes up. Yep. So vacancy, same thing. This is why this is an issue right now. If you're going to have to model 5%, 10% vacancy instead of 3% as it was a couple of years ago, then you're going to see less debt. If you can have a really good vacancy number, you're going to get more debt. And this just plays out for every dynamic in here. So if you can manage your operating.
Is that why PSH projects basically can't carry debt?
Exactly why they can't carry debt. Yep, exactly. And for them, it's a number of things, right? So their operating expenses are really high. Like PSH projects, they're operating, and like all this stuff is just, it's a zero sum game. Like it's all just, we're invisible here. We're just telling you like what's happening. Like the inputs and the outputs are what they are.
And PSH is permanent supportive housing.
Yeah, so for permanent supportive housing, like you could have on top of your cost to actually maintain the building, like a $12,000 a year like services budget that you have to cover. So with those kind of operating expenses, like even if you have really good rents through vouchers or something like that, you're just not going to be able to carry very much debt.
Does BHP maintain statistics on its eviction rates?
Yeah, we do. I saw you were here, so I actually asked our deputy director like kind of where we're at, and he said we're at about 12 a year right
I don't have any open cases.
No, you're good.
BHP, I'm not averse to you guys.
You're good.
I'm just
I just told him a few minutes ago, we're at about 12 a year right now. So
12%.
that get all the way. No, 12 evictions that get all the way through the process. Yeah. There's a higher number than that.
Where they send in the sheriff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of evictions, like the tenant will get a judgment against them and then they move out. And
Yeah.
like, the sheriff never went in and forced.
We would count that in the 12. Yeah. We have more than that.
That sounds very low.
Yeah. We start more than that, but it's because the process for them to get financial assistance requires the eviction process, which is not something that we like. We'd love to see that change locally.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's I don't go to eviction court very often anymore, but a big critique that I have of how Boulder has sort of addressed evictions is basically like there is this ARPA money for the Biden administration for emergency rental assistance. But in order to get that money, an eviction needed to be filed against the tenant. And basically this very expensive process developed where and it's not just BHP, it's all the affordable housing providers. Someone would fall 1 month behind and they're like, let me evict them, send them to court so they can get the money. And all these lawyers get involved in the dockets. And it was just a way of moving government money around while clogging up our courts and judges and costing people money. And
But to play devil's advocate, during COVID, there were so many people that weren't paying rent and they learned that their neighbor wasn't paying rent and their neighbor wasn't paying rent. And so they just stopped paying rent altogether. And so BHP has to pay on that debt, but they're not getting any.
No, I mean, I totally understand that if BHP doesn't pay people who doesn't pay rent, there's gonna be no affordable housing. They need to free up units for people who don't pay rent. It just seemed like a very expensive way to get money from one government bucket to another, to summon people to court. And I guess just an impression I've always had is, where BHP is probably the largest landlord in Boulder. And it has it's evicting people, maybe send a BHP representative over to the courthouse on Fridays. Because even though the city has EPRIS staff and eviction prevention, they're with the city, they're not with BHP, and they can't really speak with BHP. And I just think that could facilitate mediation efforts and things along those lines. That's just an opinion I have.
So I should say I completely agree with you on sort of the policy point of like, let's not make people go all the way to court to get assistance that they need. Also an eviction lawyer that understands those dynamics, that they don't pay the rent, we don't have the housing, we need you in front of the Colorado legislature, seriously, that's something that.
I've gone in front of the Colorado legislature.
Sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to ask about senior housing. So I think it's awesome that you guys did Golden West and the North Tower
Yeah.
and Hilltop and some others. So there's been a lot in the local news lately about declining birth rates and schools closing and just the general aging of Boulder. So I'm just curious, I'm assuming that's something in your mind about future.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think we're, market studies always drive what we, put forth, within our pipeline, the different projects that we have available. But we certainly anecdotally also know what has been leasing most easily, so to speak. So, Hilltop was a really easy lease up. North Tower and sort of the vacancy that we acquired when we brought on Golden West has also been absorbed really, really easily. So again, that's why we're leaning into the 55 units of age restricted housing that we're going to build next over here at Alpine Balsam. So yeah, I think that it is something that we are very aware of and see that there's quite an appetite and demand for that product.
Yeah, and housing is also one of the reasons that the population of Boulder is getting older on average, because there's not good options for families. And so that's why we're focused on projects like our 34th Street development, which is like townhomes geared towards families at the lowest possible AMI.
Can you just briefly explain the governance structure of BHP? I understand like it's not actually controlled by the city, it's quasi-independent. Could you just talk through that?
Yeah. So we have our own board of commissioners that are appointed by the mayor of 5-year terms. So it's not directly controlled by the city, but the city is, certainly our most important partner. And we are in a lot of ways like the affordable arm of the city, even though we do have independent governance.
And then authorized by the state. So
Yeah. It's
created.
depending on who you ask, we're either a creation of the federal government, the state government, or the city government.
Yeah, like what's the difference as a practical matter between BHP and Thistle?
So we are technically a government, as we're Thistle's a nonprofit. Our board is appointed by the mayor as opposed to however Thistle's bylaws, govern that process. We are tax exempt and exempt from certain fees, that type of thing, as a government agency. We're also regulated by HUD, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, in several ways that Thistle is not. We also administer federal housing choice vouchers. I think that probably covers it.
Also, maybe an order of magnitude larger.
Yeah, certainly larger. Yeah.
Or 2 orders of magnitude. I don't know, like how big is
I think maybe 4.
I think you guys both have a hard stop in like 5 minutes. Is that true?
7 minutes.
7 minutes. So last burning questions for.
Is there anything you need from Housing Advisory Board?
It's a good question.
We get to recommend things to council, so if you wanted council to do something, now's your chance.
I don't know if it's so much like council. I think it's just education around this, which is like, so we have just sort of like a basic sources and uses here. This is a 60% AMI project. You can see here that like you can get about $5.5 million in debt. You can get around 8.6 in outside tax credits. You can get about $5 million from the city at say $100K a unit to get this project built. That's 60% AMI though. So I think that like we've gotten so locked into like as an affordable housing industry, like it's $100,000 subsidy to build a unit. It's $100,000 subsidy to build 60% AMI unit, which is to say to provide that level of net affordability. Which you can see here is like even in this market, it's still at like, for this whole project would provide like $183,000 a year in affordability to the community relative to market.
And that's calculated based on the rent savings somebody's gonna experience based on paying a lower rent than a market rent.
Yeah. But now you go to a 30% AMI project, that goes to 0, right? Now you need 210,000 a unit from local sources. Our gap goes to 210,000. And it's like, I think that there's this worry like, oh, that's way too much, it's unreasonable. We can't spend this much on affordable housing, but that's only if you really think about it from the perspective of like units. If you think about it from the perspective of what are we actually saving people in rent? A 30% AMI unit is going to rent for so much less than a 60% AMI unit. You actually jump all the way up to like $691,000 of savings relative to market, which is $508,000 more than that 60% AMI project, which is really not a bad investment at all for a $5.5 million. Now we have this community asset that's going to be providing this level of savings for people, allowing this level of affordability in the community, people that have the fewest options of anywhere out there.
Those hard costs are too low, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100,000 hard costs.
It's 6 years ago.
I backed them into the $100,000 a unit that everybody's very attached to. But yeah, they are too high. But yeah, when we talk about folks that are just like at that lower income spectrum, this graph here is meant to show like what are your housing options based on your wealth. And so you can see here, if you're earning like $200,000 or more, like basically everything in the rental market is affordable to you. And then you start to kind of work your way down. And once you get into even like 40 to 45,000 a year, 14% of the market is affordable to you, right? And then you get down to 25 to 29, it's nothing, right? And so there's actually like a number of people that are in that place. I mean, there really is. A third of our community is at or below 60% of area median income. And so you can kind of do the math, like about, 15% are going to be below 30% of area median income. So about 15% of the community really has like, 2 to 3% of the housing stock is available to them.
The average income for folks that live with us is 27%.
Yeah, 27,000.
Of AMI.
Yeah.
These two slides are hurting my brain because I feel like when you hear someone give a narrative about the missing middle housing, the notion that if you make 100 to 150,000, that 99% of it is affordable. I don't even know what that means. Certainly, you wouldn't see that on a slide.
Yeah,
Because a family of four that makes 100,000 to afford a 1-bedroom apartment.
I see.
But
Yeah.
Also, there's the difference between like ownership and rent. Like the middle class has many rental opportunities within the city that do meet their affordability needs. They simply can't afford a house. They can't afford to buy a single family home.
That's correct. And this is not one bedroom, just for the record. This is created by an actual like market analyst, and it's based on like the family size, but it is rental, right? So this is rental.
Yeah, right.
This slide is in here
Can you back up
because
one slide?
I thought we'd get the missing middle question.
So yeah, this one hurts my brain in a similar way because when you ask city council to relax like the inclusionary housing requirements for missing middle projects, to have some give and take with that. City council will say, no, we want to maximize the amount of affordable housing we can build. And it seems like the debt versus the 4% state LIHTC thing, like for missing middle housing, they would just flip. You'd be able to have more debt, but no subsidies.
Yeah.
Anyways, it just,
And that is what
I'm
happens.
half a baked narrative here, but it seems
You're
like
exactly right. That is exactly what happens. And that's why because you don't need a subsidy. We don't need a subsidy to build middle income rental housing in Boulder. And it's been built for years. It continues to be built. It's always been built, will always be built. It is not a need in this community. Like on record with that.
Yeah.
It is not a need.
But we have virtually nothing in deep affordability, like below 30% AMI.
We have virtually nothing that is like available. So I think that's what I said, like we have 2,100 units and our average income is 27,000. So our average person is below 30% AMI.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you're really tight on time, but like that's kind of we've obviously met before, but like the prevailing message that you're trying to get across is that growth will be smaller in terms of amount of units if we prioritize deeply affordable units but we have virtually nothing available on the market, like through BHP or otherwise, for people who are making less than $30,000 a year, which is some 15% of our community and an even higher percentage of our 60,000 income commuters.
Well, I think the reality is those people need vouchers, but the vouchers aren't there from the federal government.
Sorry, you just said 30% of the community is.
I said it's like 30% AMI is like 15% of the community. I think that's about it, right?
That's about it,
Like,
yeah.
I thought you were trying to say it was 30-30.
No,
Right, yeah.
but I mean, it's still like pretty substantial. It's not a standard distribution.
Yeah, no, you summed it up. You summed up our message exactly. We're gonna go slower. It's gonna cost more per unit, but this is what's needed. Yeah, and this chart does not capture homeownership, right? But I think that our basic point in bringing this, because we get this question, why don't we do middle income homeownership? Why don't we do middle income homeownership? And I think for us, it's like when you have this many people that just don't have any option, this is priority one, right? Like this is priority one. Like it'd be awesome if people that were middle income could also buy a house in Boulder. That's like a nice to have. This is a must have. I think that's where we are as an organization.
I think that's right. We'd rather have people renting than sleeping on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Yeah,
being here tonight.
thanks for having us. Michelle, if you have any more questions. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah.
You're welcome to stay and learn more about ADUs.
I would, I'd love to. Yeah.
Thank you.
Presentation in the packet.
No,
but it will be.
But it will be. As soon as I share it with Tiffany.
A lot of information in short amount of time.
Lisa and Carl are both.
Okay. Hi,
Hi, everybody.
you're gonna give us an ADU update?
I am. Let me pull up my slides. One second.
I had a long argument with somebody about whether the ADU regulations would change the numbers of ADUs. And I want to be right. So tell me what I want to hear.
Well, that's a great segue. Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa Hood. I'm a principal planner with Planning and Development Services. I've worked on several of the recent accessory dwelling unit or ADU updates to our land use code. So Jay asked me to just give kind of an overview update of the ADU regulations. I'll give some background for maybe if there were some of you that weren't on the board when we would have come and explained some of these changes. But just have about a 10-minute presentation, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm just gonna walk you through the recent history of ADUs in Boulder. You might know Boulder has allowed ADUs for over 40 years. So since 1983, we've allowed ADUs. You can see this chart shows how many ADUs were approved in each year since then, as well as the various regulatory changes that we've made related to ADUs over that time and how they impacted the number of ADUs that were approved. You can see we didn't get a lot of ADUs in the first 20 years or so of the program, but it's really ramped up since about 2012. There was a very significant, although called incremental update in 2018, which you can see had a really major impact on the number of ADUs that were approved. I'll talk about that in more detail in another slide. And then as well, there were changes in 2023 and 2025. So I'll kind of just give a brief overview of all those changes and then give you some outcomes of what happened after those. One thing I wanted to highlight is that in those early years of ADUs, Boulder was one of the first cities that allowed this new concept of ADUs. So there was definitely some initial caution in the code. And one of the big things was that there was a saturation limit. So if you were the first property to want an ADU or to build an ADU within 300 feet of your neighbors, that was great for you, but there was a limit to how many ADUs could be in that radius. So that's something that was in the code from the get-go. In the early 90s, the staff memos started saying, hey, we think this saturation limit might be a problem. But we were not able to remove that saturation limit for almost 30 years. So the saturation limit was a very big part of the ADU story that I just wanted to start with. And you'll see the changes that we made. So in 2018, there was this big round of incremental changes, a really big public engagement push. It was quite controversial at the time. Jay managed this project, and he can attest there were, I think, 7 or 8 readings at City Council before the changes were actually adopted. So it was a really big conversation at the time. The changes that were made were allowing ADUs in more zoning districts. That saturation limit went from 10% to 20%. Changes to occupancy and rental licensing. We allowed a slightly larger size for ADUs, reduced a minimum lot size requirement. And then one of the big things in 2018 was we established incentives for what we call affordable ADUs, different than the affordability that you were just talking about. I'll explain it in another slide, as well as incentives for historic, like designated landmark properties, where they could reduce their parking requirement and get a larger size ADU if they established as an affordable ADU. After those changes, we saw, like I said, a big jump in ADU approvals. We got 200 new ADUs in just actually under 3 years. You can see kind of the breakdown. About 2/3 of those were detached. So those are the ADUs that are in a separate structure. Attached are either basement or part of a house ADUs. The average size was about 640 square feet. You can see the difference between detached and attached. And the big success from that change was that almost, or actually exactly 1/3 of those ADUs that were approved, the folks chose to do the affordable ADU designation. Many of them were detached and attached. So what that said to us was that those incentives were working in the code. And then we still got a lot of market rate ADUs as well. We did an evaluation of those changes in 2022 to understand what were the changes in that incremental package that really did reduce barriers to ADUs. Big one was the saturation limit, allowing a larger maximum size, reducing the minimum lot size, so how big of a lot you need in order to establish an ADU, and also allowing it in zoning districts. But that evaluation in 2022 also allowed us to highlight a number of remaining improvements that could be made to further reduce barriers, and I'll explain those in a bit. We've also, over the last almost 15 years, we've been surveying ADU owners every 5 years to try to understand what they're using the ADU for, what they're renting it for, things like that. And so we did this in 2022 to inform that evaluation. And obviously we went from 2017 before COVID, 2022 after COVID. And there were some interesting changes in that time. There were fewer ADUs that were being used for long-term rentals, and more being used for housing relatives or visitors or just extra space. So the use of ADUs got more varied over time as we got more ADUs in the city.
Lisa?
Yeah.
That last graph, I think the legend was covered up by something. Can you tell us what the blue, golden,
Yes.
brown is for?
Oh yeah, sorry, I don't know. So blue is 2022, gold is 2017, and red is 2012. Sorry, that's in the right-hand corner. You can't see that?
I think your face is covering it, not by your.
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah,
You don't have to duck.
yeah, so it's getting old. It's going back in time as the graphs go down. So 46% in 2022 were used for long-term rental versus 75% in 2012. And that
Is there just incomplete data in 22, maybe?
Not necessarily. We actually got a lot of responses to the survey. I think a lot of people during COVID were just using accessory space for other things, or they didn't want, renters maybe during COVID. That's kind of what we thought might be happening. There also were more restrictions in 2012 about what you could use an ADU for. Like it was, I think, required to have a rental license at that time, and then we got rid of the rental license requirement. So there's a number of other factors that.
Well, it shows that the percentage of ADU use for rentals has gone down substantially.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would also guess that 46% still represents a larger number of rentals, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah. And then also you can see there's housing. I mean, the ADUs are still being used for housing for relatives, which maybe it's not actually rent, but it's still another housing unit, or housing for visitors, which is temporary.
I just meant 46% of a larger number might be bigger than 75% of a smaller number. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. As we basically doubled the amount of ADUs that had ever existed in Boulder in 3 years. So it certainly changed the overall sample size. Any other questions on these charts? Okay. All right. Another interesting thing from that ADU survey was that, like I said, we view the affordable ADU option as being really successful. But when we ask how much people are renting the market rate ADUs, it's actually also affordable. And so whether the conclusion we came to from that ADU owner survey is whether it's designated affordable or market rate, because of the limited size of ADUs, they're generally kept at an affordable rate, regardless of whether it's designated affordable or not. So you can see this is the difference of what the affordable ADU rent would be if all of them were designated affordable versus what our average reported rents were in that survey, which includes both affordable and market rate.
Or this is what we call naturally
Occurring.
occurring affordable housing.
Yeah, so that's comforting because we know that the market rate, even if people aren't choosing the affordable route, the market rate is still technically meeting that affordability goal. So those changes were adopted in 2018. We did the evaluation, and then council set a work program priority project for us to update the ADU regulations in order to address those barriers. So the big one was in 2023, we were able to finally eliminate the ADU saturation limit. So regardless of whether there are ADUs in your immediate vicinity, folks can apply for ADUs. The exclamation point is there because, like I said, it took 30 years for us to actually get rid of the saturation limit. We also modified the ADU size limits and how we were measuring them. But the effort on this end was really focused on the process and trying to clarify and simplify the regulations, as well as the process that people go through when they're getting an ADU permitted through the city. We really tried to improve that process. It had previously been an administrative approval with planning and then a building permit. And so we consolidated it into just a building permit. We created a lot of materials for folks summarizing ADU regulations. Obviously, as we simplified the regulations, they were easier to explain. Created a video explaining the ADU regulations, really just a focus on process improvements with these changes in 2023. In 2025, many of you, I'm sure, are aware that the state legislature passed a bill related to ADUs, where certain cities in this state have to comply or have their regulations for ADUs comply with the state bill. So the changes that we made last year to align with the state bill is we removed the minimum lot size requirement entirely. We removed the owner occupancy requirement entirely. We removed a requirement for recording a declaration of use for market rate ADUs. Affordable ADUs still have to record a declaration of use. And what that is, if you don't know, is like a legal document that's recorded against the property that says, for the affordable one, says, I swear to keep this at the affordable rate. But we used to do it for all ADUs. So every property with an ADU had this legal requirement, which was an additional time in the ADU process. We removed some outdated design requirements. A big one was we removed the parking requirement for market rate ADUs. There wasn't a parking requirement for affordable ADUs, so that's why it was just removed from market rate. And then one of the bigger concerns in the state bill was that they allowed some flexibility for attached ADUs to be built in the rear setback. And so what we did to try to address that in the code was added some limitations on how high that could be. The reason this was a concern is typically any other addition would have to comply with the rear yard setback, which is usually, I think, about 20 or 25 feet. This basically said that if you're building an ADU, you don't have to do the 25 feet, go to 5 feet, and that's fine. So that's a pretty significant difference. So we just capped the height so that it wouldn't be as big of a structure in that rear yard setback, which you can't do in any other scenario other than an ADU. So what's happened since those changes? I've gave a very similar chart after the incremental 2018 changes. This is the same amount of time, about 2.5 years since the 2023 more process-focused improvements. We had 74 ADUs built, kind of similar, where about 2/3 of them were detached. And then the average size was 591. We are seeing some affordable ADUs, but not nearly as many without that incentive to remove a parking requirement, since we don't have a parking requirement anymore. And a number of market rate as well. The takeaways that from those changes in both 2023 and 2025, I think this is from the staff perspective. We need to do another ADU owner survey. We plan to do that next year. But the process of getting an ADU is much simpler than it used to be. It's a lot easier for staff to provide assistance with the materials that we have. I think folks appreciate and are less confused with there not being 2 steps to the process. Like I said, there's fewer that we're getting per year, but we're increasing. On that chart, I should have called out on the chart at the beginning. We've had 10 ADUs completely built this year. It's only April. And then there's 40 that are in the process of getting their building permit reviewed right now. So if those all get built this year or next year, that's about 50 in a year. Something I thought was interesting is even though we've significantly increased the allowed size of ADUs, the average size is still pretty similar and is actually even smaller despite increasing the allowance. So folks are still keeping ADUs relatively small. We are seeing more 2-bedroom ADUs. Not a ton, but more 2-bedroom ADUs with that size allowance going up, which we weren't really seeing with our previous size limit. And like I said, one of the bigger changes is that the percentage of affordable ADUs was from about 1/3 that we were seeing in 2022 to only 8% choosing that affordable ADU. The final takeaway, as I looked through the data of the 74 ADUs that have been approved in the last couple of years, is that almost 1/4 of those are legalized illegal units. And so I think that's a positive thing. So these folks are getting their plans checked, life safety items are being checked as they get their building permit to establish the ADU. Also, many of these folks have been in enforcement for having illegal units for many years, and there's just been no option to legalize, because if you were on a block that was already had already hit its saturation limit, there was no option to go through to get an ADU. So what this tells us is that now there's a route, an easier route for folks to legalize those units. They're getting checked by for building code safety, and then also getting an actual rental license. So I think that that's a great thing, that's kind of bringing these units to light. Final slide. What are we working on now or in the next year or so? The state legislation also created a grant program. And so we're going to explore some of those opportunities over the next year to see what we could potentially use grant funding for, maybe to support creating more of the affordable ADUs. Or there's been talk of like pre-designed plans or things like that. And the state seems eager to give out that grant money. So we'll be looking into that. And then, like I said, we're planning to do another survey of the ADU owners in 2027 so that we're getting that 5-year mark done. And I think that'll be really instructive as well. So that's my last slide, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Have you seen what are the trends on complaints about ADUs? I know that it's controversial, but do we actually see complaints from neighbors or community members about like ADUs, or is it pretty like non-controversial in the actual instantiation?
Yeah, that's a good question. We looked at that in 2022, and there really wasn't a difference in complaints versus any other type of rental housing. Nothing really stood out about ADUs in terms of complaints. Even for affordable ADUs that didn't have a parking requirement, there weren't complaints about like over parking or things like that. So we haven't seen a real difference. One thing I should have mentioned, because I talked about how controversial Jay's 2018 change was, the 2023 and 2025 code changes had almost no like negative public comment or folks coming to the public hearing. They went through the process very smoothly. So the public attitude of ADUs, I think, as we have done this incremental approach, has been helpful to get people more comfortable with ADUs in the community.
Can I see that first slide again with the numbers?
Yeah, 1 second.
Sure.
Yeah, cool.
Yep. 1 second.
Yeah, not the first slide, sorry. But
Yeah, the chart. I'm guessing the chart.
all right. And then Tiffany, do you mind moving the such an amazing spike at 2018. And that was mostly from the doubling of the saturation limit? Or
Yeah, I mean, we think so. I think there was also some pent-up demand that probably you would have seen more ADUs in 2017 and 2018. But while that process, while the code change process was going on, people were waiting until 2019 to submit.
How much of that also is there were illegal ADUs that went legal after the updates were adopted? I mean, probably have no good way of forecasting that, but.
Yeah, that one I don't have the data as easily as I do in the last year, because of that two-step process. This is data from like the first step of the process until 2022, and then the data from 2025 is the building permit data, where you can see if it's tied to an enforcement case. So it didn't stand out when I did the evaluation that legalizing was like a huge part of it, but definitely anytime we relax some of the rules, it's going to provide an avenue for some folks that are either hitting up against that saturation limit when it was 10% or a size or something else.
What's the total number of ADUs now?
It's about 500.
Do we know how many people live in ADUs in Boulder?
We don't. That would be an interesting data point. Maybe we can add that to the owner
I
survey.
assume it's between 500 and 1,000.
Yeah, probably with the size. That would be
And
likely.
some of it's just extra space, like offices.
I was gonna say our offices,
Some for
studios.
visitors.
It's probably under 1,000.
Still, that's 1%. I mean, if they're gonna do 50 this year, that's twice as many housing units as the Boulder Mod Factory. Sorry, I'm not trying to be cynical. It's cool, it's great.
Yeah, one other thing we've seen is there's been 3 factory built ADUs that have been built this year. So that's new also.
Oh, wow.
Where did they come from?
I'm not sure. I just saw them in the building permit data.
New Mexico. I think one I know came from New Mexico. I don't know about the others.
Amazon.
Oh, really? Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
They do sell houses in Amazon.
Sears, Kick Homes. Did she answer your question?
I didn't really have a
You were-
question, I just wanted to stare at it. I just.
Well, you asked something.
Oh, you mean yeah. Well, I was hoping to see, like, the last 3 years be more than the previous 3 years, but that's not true.
Yeah, me too.
But it's still encouraging that it seems like there's more ADUs going in than it was in like the 2015, 2018 range, and that we're on an upward trajectory there.
mean, I wonder if the trajectory's not going up because cost of construction is.
Well, there's probably only so many ADUs that'll get built.
Yeah,
you
I
know.
wonder if we'll hit a saturation, right?
I mean, how many single family homes are there? There's 10, 20,000, 15,000 single family homes that would be good candidates for ADUs. I can't remember what the number might be.
A lot of people don't want an ADU.
Totally, yeah.
That's, you're right, it's sort of saturates out.
What is it? Do you know what that number is?
How many single family homes?
I'm not
What
gonna.
number? I don't know off the top of my head. Carl, do you know?
Good evening, board. I'm Carl Geiler, Planning and Development Services. I know that there's over 47,000 dwelling units in Boulder, and I think maybe a little bit less than 50% are considered detached dwelling units. So I'd say it's somewhere around 20,000.
Sounds good.
But I would say, so if you look at the same chart for other cities like Portland, getting rid of the owner occupancy was huge. The number quadrupled.
Yeah,
That also happened in 2019.
Which so I would expect.
But it did not.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I
was
guess it
surprised
did
by that.
quadruple here in 2019.
The owner occupancy wasn't removed until 2025. So I would say, I mean, it takes a long time to get a building permit through the process. It takes a long time to get architectural plans drawn. So those changes that happened last year, probably we're not seeing an immediate impact yet. So hopefully in the next year or two, we'll see it jump more. But like somebody said, there's so many other factors like cost of construction and things like that, interest rates, all of that. So there's a lot more going on, and the economy's not quite as good in the last few years. So as much as I like to think that the zoning code rules all, there's a lot more complexity.
It's too bad ML wasn't here.
Any other questions? Thank you for the update
Yeah.
and the background. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you all for your time, and thanks for serving on the board.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you.
Good to see you all. Take care.
All right, Boulder Valley Comp Plan recommendation, the council and planning board. Did everybody have a chance to look at the draft memo? Thoughts, comments, concerns?
You want me to read the bylaws on making motions for our new board members? In the process.
Sure, if you would like to, go for it.
Well, someone asked earlier if there were rules.
Go for it.
Motion making. A regular member, after obtaining the floor, makes a motion. If the motion is long or involved, it should be in writing. The motion maker may state his or her reasons briefly before making the motion, but may argue the motion only after it has been seconded, and having spoken once may not speak again until everyone who wishes to be heard has the opportunity to speak, except to answer questions asked by their board members. Having made a motion, the motion maker may neither speak against it nor vote against it. Another regular member seconds the motion. All motions require a second. The seconder does not have to favor the motion in order to second it and may both speak and vote against it. If there is no second, the chair shall not recognize the motion. The chair states the motion and asks for discussion. General debate and discussion follow if the member desires. The board members, when wishing to speak, shall follow the rules of speaking outlined above. At the end of discussion or when the question is called, the chair restates the motion and puts the question to a vote. The chair announces the result of the vote. The motion is not completed until the result is announced. So I'd like to make a motion. I move to
But then you
adopt.
can't say anything else for the rest of the night.
No, I'm allowed to speak, and then everyone else has to speak. I move to adopt the resolution attached to the board packet for tonight's meeting as a recommendation of the board. I think it's a very well-written recommendation. And at the end of the day, I think we have a big affordability problem in Boulder. Supply and demand is economics 101. And if we're going to tackle affordability, we need more supply.
Very nicely summarized.
What happens next?
Someone has to second.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
No.
Open up.
Come on. I was-
Actually, you have to read it. You can read it and then we can debate it.
The whole thing?
If you want.
Do I need to?
I don't think you need to.
So I hate to open this up, but my only question is, based on what we heard from Boulder Housing Partners today,
Mhm.
do we want to say anything about just stressing the need to serve the most deeply affordable units, or serving the most vulnerable in our community? Or do we just leave it as is?
The takeaway I got from them was that they were totally unambiguous about what their mission was, and that they've got a lot of community support around that. And like, if that was up for debate, and there was a huge community conversation around whether.
But it is a community conversation right now. People are talking
Oh.
about, do we subsidize middle income housing, right?
Well,
I guess
that's a broad, that's
not
actually a broader
necessarily
conversation.
comp plan specific, I don't know,
Yeah.
just.
But it's
I'm
not
just-
not.
I'm just
Yeah.
throwing it out there as an idea.
There is a procedure for amending motions.
I'm not
I-
necessarily suggesting that, but.
I totally hear what you're saying, and I appreciate that, because I definitely heard them talk, I mean, that the one particular graph that they were showing, and what percentage of people need deeply affordable, and that's where we're seriously lacking. I thought that was a powerful image. I wonder though, if that's like the comp plan is this like overarching thing, right? Like, so I wonder if keeping it as is with the explicit recognition of the need to increase housing supply, period. But addressing counselor, making a recommendation to counselor, or having that deeply affordable housing as a separate conversation would be more appropriate.
The comp plan lasts for quite a few years, right?
True.
And when Jeremy and Laura were talking, they were talking about the next few years so if the comp plan update is only like, every 10 years, within that 10-year period of time, it may fluctuate. They were just talking about the next couple of years. So I wonder if maybe it should be more broad like it is now without that modification. Because the market could change quite a bit in 10 years.
Right,
Or they
like,
could deliver 500.
And 5 years from now,
80%
maybe
of
they
the
do
volume
need
of
more
units, yeah.
60 to 80%.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine keeping it as it is. I just.
Is there a way I can read
I
this?
appreciate that way
Like
of
the
thinking.
current,
What's that?
is there a way I can read the,
It's in the packet, so.
is it in that? Okay, I'm looking for it in the package.
It's
Yeah, it's,
page, it was like the third page, fourth page.
Yeah. Can I say something positive about it?
Yeah.
I just love the simplicity of bullet number 3, and how it's in the past, we've written a lot of letters, and in the past, I remember one somewhat recently where Mark Wallach kind of snarkily was like, "Oh, they want missing middle, you don't say," and I feel like a lot of times we sort of we've put letters together. I mean, this has been said a few times, but we put letters together that said a lot and kind of nothing at all. And I love how this does not say a lot, but it speaks very loudly of the one thing we're trying to say, and it's in bold right there. And I think goal 79 would be vastly improved with the edit, and I hope they listen and make the edit. So I'm in full support.
So a little background for the three of you. So we've had city staff come and present to us a couple of times about the Boulder Valley Comp Plan in the last year and a half or something like that, getting ready for the update. And then we had Tess come last month, I guess it was, and presented the Boulder Valley Comp Plan, some updates, changes, and then she asked 3 very specific key questions when she presented to us. And so these 3 bullet points answer those questions. And then the subsequent conversation that we had amongst HAB is, right, do we go into details about what kind of housing is needed? Do we want to talk about a variety of housing types, a variety of housing costs? Do we want to talk about that? And at that time, we came to an agreement that no, really the thing was, it's like, let's keep it simple and just be really clear. We need more housing, period. And then, yes, there's lots of sub details, but that's kind of how this version came about. So just to catch you up.
I agree with generally. One point for consideration, it's not necessarily to propose anything now, but it's like whether we want to actually propose like specific language that they could insert, like adding a sentence like the city is committed to policies that promote or that will increase the housing supply or something like that, so that it's not so that we have something they could practically adopt and not just like add the word increased before supply, for example. The other small point is that we should change 2025 to 2026.
That's probably a good idea.
So amended to change the date. Unless does someone else have something before I speak again? Shira?
No.
Okay. I was just gonna say to Lauren's point, my understanding of this comp plan is it's big picture guidance at a very high level. I agree with you. I think we can make recommendations on types of housing. And I think we can still do that. I don't think approving this is exclusive to that. This really speaks to the comp plan. And one thing that I've been looking at is just the population data on Boulder, which is that, in 100 years ago, in I guess 1920, the population was 11,000. It hit 95,000 or so in 2000. And today it's around 106. So from 1990 over 2020 years, it's gone up 10,000 people. We've seen relatively mild population growth in 20 years, but we've seen massive home expense and home ownership price increase, which just signals to me that something's out of whack. And at a big picture level, if we want to maintain or just maintain somewhat affordable housing or combat skyrocketing prices, there needs to be more supply because the population's relatively stagnant, but the housing prices are going up. And how do we allow there to be more population and perhaps more affordable housing? It's by just building more housing at all levels. And I think in terms of the comp plan, there's a lot of debate. Like my understanding is when the planning board goes to approve a project or consider a project, they have to look at the comp plan. If someone's proposing a 4-unit development versus 8 units, this recommendation says 8 units is better. That's the value of the city. So I think as a community, we need to wrap our brains around that we need to be able to grow the size of our community if we don't want housing prices just to skyrocket infinitely. And that means building more housing units at all levels. And probably if we're gonna increase the housing supply, because we're not building houses at Chautauqua, it means denser, smaller housing units in existing space that's available for construction. So I'm good with this recommendation. We can change the date. I don't know if we have to.
Do you have more thoughts about?
No, there is a goal about permanently affordable housing at or below 50% AMI, so I think we're fine.
Now what?
I think you put it to a vote. We have a second.
I think you make a motion to.
Are we ready?
Motion.
Motion to approve? Favor. Great, none opposed, motion approved.
Thank you for that.
All right. Have work plan.
I guess point of order, how do,
Yes.
this is something we need
Sorry.
to talk about. How do we communicate our recommendations to council and manage? Have you been able to get a public comment at a council?
No, we don't get, hold on, that's on my list.
Okay. Because I think that plays into it would be good if we figured out a way to communicate this.
Well, there is a process for us
But the letter.
to be able to share
there's
this
a well-known
memo.
Probably
Right.
included in the packet that goes to the planning board and city council.
Does that answer your question about that, this specifically?
Yeah, I mean, do we want to, the next time someone tries to go to council to speak, they maybe read this recommendation?
Can you hold that thought for just
Yeah.
a moment?
You can also just email it to the planning board or council, like directly, right?
We could do that. I think if we agree that someone can, you're the chair, email it to all the members of council and planning board and say this is a recommendation from the Housing Advisory Board approved 7-0.
You could also probably go directly to future@bouldercolorado.gov and ask that it gets sent out. So like, for instance, when I'm doing recommendations to the county commissioners, et cetera, to make sure it goes on public record, that's how I do it. So I don't even email it directly to my colleagues. I send it into the BBCP and ask that it get redistributed back out to avoid basically serial meeting legislation.
Yeah, my point is like these meeting packets I've seen for council are sometimes like 500 pages.
Yeah,
And
planning.
Yeah, there's
I
200
wonder
pages.
but maybe they don't see it, and maybe if there's a way we could ping it into someone's inbox, it might get read.
If I could, like I'm pretty good about reading them, and I know that my colleagues are as well. Like particularly when they come on behalf of a board, or I think that there's about 1,000 public comments, but at the top are all of the like board recommendations and whatnot. And I mean, also that's part of the reason I'm here, right, is to bring that recommendation back to the planning board. And for what it's worth, I could see the need for language to specify specifically more density. And right now, almost all the planning board and council is united on that goal. The county is not necessarily, but I think that will be a well-received revision. So, I mean, I can even just personally tell the planning board that.
Holly, Jay, do you chime in about process or?
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Okay.
We can send it directly to planning board. But I agree, sending it to the comp plan staff, it'll get included in the packet. Because you're a board, you will get higher priority. So it won't be lumped in with all the other hundreds and hundreds of comments. And I know the comp plan staff is already working on revising the language.
Yeah, they might even just do it themselves. And then, because correct me if I'm wrong, but comp plan staff is taking the recommendations from the public, the boards, et cetera, and then giving it back to us one more time as plan board and council. And then we say what we like and don't like about the revisions, and then it goes back again. And then we go to voting it in. So we have like one more layer of revisions still going on right now. And it's closed to the public, but I don't think it's obviously not closed to you guys.
True. Yeah, just closed to the public.
Yeah, and before our 4-body meeting, it was closed to the public. So there's no longer public comments, like kind of muddying waters on it.
Is that? Oh, good, that plan?
Just, you can email to whoever you want.
Okay, work plan. Ready to talk about work plan? Everybody see the work plan? So we have a HAB retreat next month. Jay, were we able to get a facilitator for that?
Still working on it, but we'll have one for you, promise.
Okay, cool.
If not, it'll be Halloween.
She could
They're
do
just gonna
it. I
keep
believe in her.
the same hub, the same mini night for the retreat.
Yep. Tiffany has the night off.
Or do you have to?
Usually,
Unless,
unless it's November.
and
Or is there a schedule that goes beyond this, or is this the extent to which it's been scheduled out?
I would say that's the, I mean, the schedule is, yes, it's the 4th, except for,
We usually have one meeting in November, December. Those 2 months usually get a meeting in the beginning of December.
generally true.
Skip July.
Or, so actually, I had proposed that as a possibility, but I thought that there was gonna be a few people going, apparently it's just me. But Tiffany is gonna be out in August, true? And she is impossible to replace.
Untrue.
Okay, but it is very difficult to get somebody else to fill in for you, so
It's
there,
irreplaceable, yes.
yes, so I'd suggest that we cancel August.
And it sounds like
Because
council and planning
Tiffany's-
board have a summer recess too.
Also. In August?
No, theirs is in July, beginning of July, I think. But they also meet more often, but anyway, side note. We don't have to decide that yet, so it's.
You put on the agenda for next month.
I just say, I read in the news recently that one of the county open space board made the news for canceling too many meetings, and they got a lot of heat for that. So
I would say.
I don't think
gonna be
we
okay.
have that problem,
I think
but
we're gonna be
it
okay.
drew attention, I'd say.
But Brendan, I don't know if that answered your question. Generally, we kind of just have a list of potential things which anybody can chime in and say, hey, we should have a panel or these guests or discuss this or whatever. Anybody can chime in with that either now would be the appropriate time, or you can email me or Jay at any time and we can add things to the list. But generally, we kind of have it projected out 2 or 3 months of kind of what the topics or guests are. So right, and then in June, we are going to have a housing for older adults needs and options. We'll have a couple of guests, which will be awesome. You just like spending time with us right now. That's all. Oh, and we also have the chair and vice chair elections in June. So think about if you're interested in serving in one of those roles, or you think somebody else should serve in one of those roles. And then, okay, so I can segue to this. So in June would be about when we would do a quarterly update. So I still have not got to do the most recent quarterly update. I'm just on the list. And I get these nice messages that I'm going to be bumped up on the list because I keep not making the list and it hasn't happened yet. So the next one is the 7th is the next city council meeting. I think that's not a study session. Is that true? Whatever that date is. So I'll be putting my name on the list on Friday. I read over what I had planned to say to make sure that it was still appropriate, and it's the thing that we voted on, and it is still appropriate. But this would be a good segue. I think the next quarterly update might be a great time to say something about what we learned from BHP tonight, and really emphasizing the need for deeply affordable and
Yeah.
So we
problem
can,
is
we can think on that.
Well, I-
We just don't have the opportunity
Well,
to say it.
I think the fact that we may not always get an opportunity to speak, we should probably also email it to
For sure.
council and then show up in person if
For
we
sure.
want to show up in person.
It's just, I can't help but being reminded of something you said about 18 months ago, or maybe it was, I guess it was about a year ago now.
You said it a few times. I
Um,
knew what you were gonna say.
With
I
the
knew what you were
charter
gonna
thing,
say.
About how HAB can take the floor or something like that.
How the city charter says the commissions have the right to the floor of council.
So, I mean, maybe we ought to go nuclear. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous that you're trying to show up and give a 2-minute thing, but something that we voted on to say, and that like you're part of a lottery and
And it is in the charter. And
So-
we actually voted, there was on the ballot last November, was whether we should get rid of that portion of the charter, and the voters said no. So I mean, it does speak to kind of like the structural design of our government in the city. But whatever, I'm not gonna file a lawsuit over this.
So,
But I could.
Colleen J, what would that look like?
We've been down this road before. I would not recommend it.
that's why I use the word, the dramatic word nuclear, is because I think it would be, it's disruptive to the way we do things, but I don't know. Maybe it's worth reading.
I mean, it's just an update to council. It's not
Yeah.
like anything really pressing.
I just think in the grand scheme of things, like the city of Boulder is facing free speech lawsuits from people during public comment where the city council said you're being disruptive. And then they said that you're violating my First Amendment rights. And if we just look at this like big picture, like our city council does struggle with getting comments from the community in that process. It's something they've had a lot of trouble with. And the city has dealt with extensive litigation in this regard. And if I just look at like how our city is structured, there's all these different commissions and boards that are very specifically targeted towards certain subject matters: planning board, housing, transportation, environment, parks and rec. And there's an opportunity for people to come to those boards and speak on those specific issues. And then there's an opportunity for those boards who were appointed by council to then communicate that to council. And it seems like council spends more time listening to just general public, which is important, and gets bogged down with lawsuits and angry people over free speech issues, and doesn't even have an organized channel to hear from its own commissions. So, I mean, it's more of like a big picture thing. It's not unique to our board, obviously. But when I just look at the structural design of our charter, the way that I sort of view how it's supposed to work is that people can come to these commissions, speak on issues such as housing or transportation or what have you. And then the commissions can come in a more organized, cohesive way, speak and communicate with council. And it does seem to me like there is a problem where there's not an appropriate mechanism for the commissions to actually communicate with council. And the charter does contemplate it. It says they shall have the right to the floor. And I don't think that's being respected in our city.
We, members, I think you were there, right, last night?
Yeah.
We had like an introduction to boards and commissions and panels with the city attorney's office. Maybe like they would have some advice, just as an idea
Oh, yeah. Good.
about like how to read the language of the charter.
That's who I always go to. I mean, on my brief time, but I mean, I've been harassing those cats since long before I was on planning board, and like the attorneys are normally very responsive. And the packets of this are determined by the staff, not the council. It's not necessarily council's like immediate purview to designate who has the floor.
Do we want to reach out to the city attorney and just say this is the language in the charter and we'd like clarification on the city's position and how that right to the floor is executed?
I mean, they're gonna provide their legal opinion, which is what you're reading in the charter, right? Whether or not politically we want to do that is another question, right?
And my answer to that is no, I don't
Yeah,
think we
I
do.
agree.
Why can't we just email it to them? I mean, is it really important that we speak in person?
That's a good question. So it seems like it was about 3 years ago that HAP decided that so we write a letter or two a year to council with kind of like, this is what we've been doing, this is what we recommend. And there can be other things, but that's kind of like a routine. And have discussed at the time, maybe we should be a little bit more forward with city council. And so we kind of made it a goal, a loose goal of saying, hey, we should do like a quarterly update. We don't always have to be in front of them, but if we do, let's say a letter in January when they're asking boards and commissions for that information, and then maybe a few months later, we could speak for 2 minutes and just a quick update, what we're thinking about, what we're recommending, that sort of thing, and kind of leapfrogging. But then we kind of morphed to, let's just try and do a couple of minutes every quarter-ish. And we had basically been doing that until this last time when I put my name on the list a couple times, maybe in blacklist.
I think it's always nice to just have them know who we are, show up in person and hear our voices. But
We're an advisory board, so we have no like hard power to make recommendations. And I think our power is as strong as we make it. You know, if we send a 7-0 recommendation and we communicate it clearly and concisely to council, that carries weight.
when we care enough to show up to do public comment.
Yeah, if we pass a 4-3 resolution that gets buried in a packet with 1,000 pages, doesn't carry as much weight. So that was our attitude, I think. And I think it was good. It kind of kept us on track with, we need to actually recommend something. I think we were happy with that. It just sounds like we hit a roadblock recently with
winning the lottery.
You know,
They've also had like a lot of issues with particularly like the rec center. There's been a couple like very controversial things
there's
that
a lot of people wanting to speak.
are stacked up. So I think that you're right that there's a lot of value in showing up and speaking in person. And then also I think there's a lot of value in board members, like whether it's on the one I'm on or the one you guys are on, in feeling empowered and being like, there's a reason that we're all showing up here tonight. Like, I'm not getting paid to be here tonight. You know, like nobody else is. Like,
and the first time that we agreed and we voted on a comment, I went to council to read it, and it was something we voted on, we approved, and that was an eye-opening experience because there were screaming people. The cops came in, council suspended the meeting. There was a lot of anti-Semitic comments. It was very dark, and then there was a period where council just stopped having public comment altogether, and it made me realize like our city has like a procedural problem here. There's not decorum, and the community is not effectively communicating to its council. And the hope is, like, I think this is a very productive process of listening to staff, listening to subject matter experts, having public comment unique to our board, debating it, presenting it. That's like really good governance. But if there's sort of a wedge that doesn't actually let us communicate effectively to council, then, you know, that's just a structural procedural problem. But that's the way I see it.
this is just like my opinion. And I don't even really entirely know what my role is here, although I do think constitutionally somebody from planning board is bound to HAB, unlike any other.
It's in the ordinance. You have no voting power, but you have to be here.
Yeah. But I mean, in that way, that is also like a channel through, though, you know, in the same way that I do have a little bit more of a direct line of communication on the BVCP. But I agree with you entirely. And as somebody who spends a lot of time communicating with council, which is why I'm in the position that I am now, I think that it would be well met. I don't think it would be a politically tumultuous suggestion to say, due to the issues with public comment that we're all suffering for, like whether that be controversial issues or like disruptive, et cetera, we would like a 2 to 3 minute window, or 3 to 5 minute window quarterly. I think that would be well met.
If they have 20 spaces for public comment, they could give 4 of those spaces to the boards and commissions at each meeting, and they could probably fill in all the boards either 2 to 4 times a year. and reserve a spot for the boards and commissions to come speak. That's just a thought, and that would be up to them just to pass a rule. My thought is the charter sort of compels them to accommodate that.
Are there particular issues that we feel like we're not being heard on? I think as a new member, like I'm missing the context of what we would want to be saying.
I kind of feel like a little bit, this kind of answers that question, I think, is kind of choosing our battles kind of thing. And I think that the quarterly update, what we had approved for me to say at this next one is nothing earth shattering. I kind of feel like
And also, I think the more times you don't win the lottery, the better your chances are.
So they say.
So they say.
I mean, the numbers have been high there because there has been some really controversial things in the public. So I'm feeling good about this next month. But I guess what I'm saying is I feel like
Well, would you rather, in that regard, would you rather just read what we just passed and what we voted on months ago? Or weeks ago, whenever that was?
I feel like that's a separate question.
Yeah, well, but you did say, you're like, I don't feel like it's that important. I feel like what we just voted on is pretty important.
I think
I
it is too.
But I guess what I'm saying, let me just finish my thought.
Sure.
I feel like if we're gonna demand the floor, it needs to be not this is what we've been doing the last few months. I think it needs to be a really big thing, and I don't think we have that right now. I think that's what I was trying to say.
Yep. I think what we just voted on is worthy of speaking to council. I don't even remember what the last quarterly update
But
was.
there are channels to get that information to city council and planning.
I was gonna say, it sounds like there are several channels, and thank you, Max,
Yeah.
for chiming in with a couple of things, and Jay for clarifying. It seems like there's several channels to be able to make sure that this is.
I would recommend also, instead of going just to the public comment in a general city council, that we have joint city council planning board meetings about the BVCP, and nobody comes to those. So there's no competition for comment on those, and that's the more relevant time to come in general. Like you might ask staff for 3 minutes at that meeting, and I think that once again that would be well received.
Public comment allowed?
There isn't public comment.
It wasn't public.
It's considered a study session.
Oh man, really? Yeah.
But
That was a good idea.
But you're not public.
But no.
Well, I have a question. I know sometimes at council meetings, they always do open comment at the beginning, which people are allowed to talk about anything. And then sometimes they hold specific comment. It's not open comment, public comment on something they're about to vote on, but it's usually something very specific, like a quasi judicial
Like that
function.
public hearing, yeah.
Yeah, will they be holding any form of public comment specific to the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan?
They will during the adoption. So, but the idea is everything's finalized by then.
Okay,
So you want to get this before their next meeting, because that's when they basically signal they're all good with the plan.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because I might be, but we're gonna have the council and planning board are gonna have one. We likely won't adopt it then. And then it'll go in front of planning board and then council separately, right? Unless everybody magically agrees, which would be, I think staff would be really grateful for.
Occasionally it ping pongs back and forth between planning board, city council, and then sometimes with the county. Anyway. I think you guys are fine.
I'll stop talking for
So-
now. I've made myself heard.
I appreciate you brought it up, and I
Yeah.
appreciate you bringing it up every once in a while.
I would,
And I appreciate that you chime in,
all
but
right.
I do, yeah.
I would recommend talking more about the retreat though. Preparing for that. So there's some basic questions on the work plan that the chairs and I came up with, but this is your retreat, right? So you guys should spend a few minutes talking about what is it that you want to accomplish?
What do you want to accomplish?
Has there been a retreat in the past for TAB?
There has been. I've only been a part of one.
We didn't have one last
I didn't have one.
My first HAB meeting was like a retreat. And I'll say my criticism of it was that it felt very like dominated by the facilitator. There wasn't, I don't know, I would just like to hear like what everyone's issues are and learn what each individual board member kind of values. I didn't feel like we had the opportunity to do that. These were 7 members, and it's like, where's their consensus, you know, and what do people care about and stuff? And I think that would be a valuable use of retreat time.
I think with a big turnover, I think it'll be good to just simply have some like kind of getting to know you, but not necessarily what my favorite color is, which is blue, by the way, but more like, so if I were in charge of Boulder,
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
Like what would be my dream to solve housing in Boulder? Like, I think it would be great to kind of hugely think outside of the box and just really think about like, what do we want to see? What do we want to be a part of? What do we want to help create? And then also kind of hone it down to, okay, so how can we actually do that? How can we help make that happen?
Yeah, I love kind of like going really, like you're saying, like values, like personal who you are, but then also kind of like that big picture, far out there visioning. I feel like for me, for maybe not so much the values, I feel like more clear on that, but the like visioning piece could be interesting if we have time during the retreat to do like some personal brainstorming. Like ask the question, get 5 minutes, piece of paper, think about it, could be 3 minutes, and then share.
Maybe trying to, and I like that, the brainstorming you do a lot. Adding on to that, I think like trying to think about tying what we do to like the functions that are listed. It's like what we're supposed to be doing, advise the city council on housing issue strategies, study and recommend long-term goals, et cetera. Like what we would do for each one of those things, or what we could do for each one of those things to actually like add value according to what the board is set up for this.
I would say that that's typically a big part of the retreat is, you know, what is your work plan for the next year? What do you want to focus your time on?
Values, vision, work plan. Brainstorming.
David, how about you? What do you think?
Yeah,
What
I
would you like to get out of our
I
time?
agree with that. I mean, from some of the stuff on here, other items to explore, it looks like people have been developing their own projects or agendas for a while. As a new member, I haven't done that yet. So brainstorming or whatever you want to call it, I think it would be good to think about, you know, what issues I might like to champion or over the next year.
How many have retreats with you?
I guess this is, I guess I'm in year 5 now.
Yeah, so
By the senior member, I guess. I'm weird.
Your member emeritus. Yeah, that's fine.
I remember when I started coming to HAB meetings, it took a bit to orient myself to what the purpose of HAB was and how it operates. And it kind of surprised me, you know, to understand how the meetings rules works of like we like 3 of us can't get together and do some work offline. Like other organizations that you're part of, the whole purpose of a meeting is to make it as efficient as possible so that you delegate the work that you're going to do and whatever subset of people that wants to work together to get some task done, go get it done however you want. We're not allowed to do that this way. So these meetings are working meetings. And also like I kind of thought I would be overwhelmed with work. Like I'd be doing stuff, you know. But we've mostly in my time have played a very much an advisory role where we hear presentations from city staff, we get feedback on that, we do some letters of recommendation. But like I don't ever remember, I think in the couple of years before I was here, there were some actual studies and reports that were written by HAB that I was not a part of. And maybe one. Okay, so there was one, and it was related to mobile ADUs that you could park in a front yard or something in a driveway.
Actually, before that, that one didn't quite go anywhere.
So, I don't know why I said all that. I do remember, you know, like I've gone on different rants at different times about big ideas and I love doing that sort of stuff, you know, but I'm also not sure how effective or useful it is either.
I think it's more useful in a retreat setting, like than
For
it
sure,
is
yeah.
during our structured meetings.
Yeah.
And I think there is value to that. I mean, I've been on the board for 2 years and the only other people in here 2 years are you and Karin. And it took me like 2 years to kind of figure out the stuff you guys care about. Like, it'd be nicer if we could just talk a little more upfront about everyone's issues and stuff, and then know that going into meetings so that you don't have to spend 2 years trying to figure out what one person stands for or what they're passionate about. Sure. You know.
Not sure if I gave you anything useful for
I think
planning the
so.
retreat or not, but
I think so.
I'm excited about it. I think it'll be fun and I'll participate with enthusiasm.
How long is the retreat?
6 or 7 hours. It's just scheduled for the regular time, correct? But we are gonna meet at Wild Sage Co-housing, which will send out the address. It's in the Holiday neighborhood in North Boulder. And a part of that is to do a quick little tour, not so much of Wild Sage, but it's in Holiday, like in the heart of Holiday. And Holiday is a really incredible part of town that was a very successful master development thing. Not everybody's been there. So we're gonna do a little tour and then we'll eat dinner. And then we'll work. But we'll still be done by 9.
Yeah. It's nice to do it outside of the city building, just more comfortable that way too. So like typically staff doesn't attend. This is good. So the facilitator will be there.
Unless you want to.
I think
Just saying,
I think you're super helpful.
I think so too.
Jay's trying to get out of it.
You told me I couldn't come either.
I don't want to get to know everybody. Just kidding.
You are welcome to.
Sit in the-
I do think you're really helpful though, just saying.
I think technically, according to the statute, you're a member. You're like an ex officio non-voting.
Me?
I think all 3 of you are actually.
I think that is true. I think I'm a non-voting member technically.
I think the 3 of you are not. So
It's just traditionally, staff has not attended, because that way you guys can have an honest conversation among yourselves and not worry about sending staff, or, you know, if you guys want to talk about ways you'd like the meetings run differently or better, this is your opportunity to do that as well.
I think you keep us on track, but
So is that enough information to be able to pass on to the facilitator? You didn't say anything.
You guys are gonna meet with the facilitator.
Oh, that's right. We're meeting with this one.
It was to prepare you guys and the rest of the board for what to expect.
Well, if there's any feedback, just from the last one I did, I felt like, and that was like my first meeting, there wasn't like a chance for me to really like talk to any existing members on the board, because it just felt like it was so structured. So some feedback, I'd say maybe a little less structure and a little more really just for us to talk.
You agree with that, Phil?
I thought of something else I wanted to say.
Okay.
I wasn't even listening to Chip, I'm sorry. I got
Actively
excited about something. If my comments about my personal history would have felt cynical or depressing, I want to just make a counterpoint, which is in 2022, I think is when I started, or maybe 23. I'm losing track. Anyways, it was a really interesting time because we had a very huge change in the political makeup of city council. And there was a bunch of stuff housing related that came through the pipe, and it came through HAB, and HAB said, yes, this is great. Here's some thoughts. but there was a ton of stuff in process. And then like a ton of stuff happened, you know, like the ADUs happened, the occupancy reform happened, there's various state stuff happened. And it was just sort of like, man, this is easy and fun. We get to like see all this change happen and we get to weigh in. And so I know that has not been a lot of other people's experiences I have of watching things crawl very slowly and nothing seems to happen. So anyways, I just wanted to make a counterpoint to my other point. It was fun.
Any other comments about the retreat and the plans?
I think, well, I do want to get to know new members, especially. I think focusing on work plan is really important and just ideas for topics.
Agree.
Start thinking now. All right. Staff. What you got to say? Matters from staff. Is there anything?
I can't think of anything. Any questions? Holly, you got anything?
No. Really? We've ever not had something.
What do you want to hear?
I don't know. I'm just there.
Something exciting going on? I wish I could tell you that.
What's happening with Prop 123, Holly? How much is being cut?
You know what? I don't feel like I've followed that very closely because we have gotten very few dollars in the city anyway. So it doesn't feel like it's going to have a big operational impact for developments around here.
Why is that? Why haven't we? It's not appropriate. We haven't asked.
Oh, we've asked. A lot of different entities have asked for funds and the city's been successful in pulling 2 grants for about $4 million, $4.8 million total. And I think that's all that we can say that the city has received from Prop 123.
And what a lot of other jurisdictions are getting is, it's not to build housing. It's for technical assistance. It's to hire consultants. Which I consultants in the room are offended. But, which is disappointing to me.
I can share that Thistle did receive a grant.
Yeah. Habitat for Humanity got the 2nd largest grant, and that gets distributed to the different affiliates. So Flatirons is will be a recipient this year. So I mean, there is money flowing, but are you talking specifically about the money that the legislature?
I was just curious if you had any updated news in the last week from.
Well,
I mean,
the legislature is going to claw back
a lot of
big chunk
it, yeah.
We all got $25 back on our tax returns from Taylor, so. If you weren't in prison for more than 6 months.
The other thing I'll say about Prop 123 is I think we've focused as like a city to target the money for affordable homeownership opportunities. And what the state is cutting is through OEDIT, and I forgot what OEDIT stands for. I can't remember the
Economic development, yeah.
And that's not where the homeownership
Okay.
lies. So again, I haven't felt very like personally offended by it.
If you got any insider knowledge.
Yeah.
Does it sound like it just wasn't enough money to make like a big enough impact?
Chat was distributing a lot.
Yeah.
Like they're targeting to distribute $30 million in the next month or two. But
Yeah, and there's a dashboard where you can see where money has been distributed to, and there's a lot of dollars that have gone out. But a lot of it is through OEDIT, CHAPA to developers. It's not like, maybe they'll speak more to it than I. That's where the bulk of the funding is going.
going to private developers building 60% AMI units.
Well, and I
Yeah,
think
thank you.
it's,
I didn't want.
I think we're seeing just a broader social trend that we're moving away from a ownership society to a renter one. People are gonna be renters for a long time, and that's the type of housing we're building.
Try to find some.
I'm not saying that's
No,
good.
try to find some developers that are building besides Habitat and,
It's very hard to
yeah,
do.
yeah, there's not many developers that are doing.
Affordable housing is very hard to do.
Okay, well, thank you.
Like I said, if there's something you do want to know about, let me know in advance too, and I can give you an update.
Well, and thank you for the information you provided me. That was, you were out on vacation and then you sent me,
Oh,
yeah, that's helpful.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Also, thank you for the ADU update. It was great.
Okay. Any final thoughts? Anything else? Anybody want to- Be raising your hand and make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn.
Second that. All in favor? Motion approved. Thank you, everybody.